Before we begin, I'd like to give a shout out to the Half-Life 2 Project Beta community. They've done amazing work in recreating the beta version of Half-Life 2. And secondly, if you enjoy the video, please consider subscribing. It'll take a second, but it'll make my day. Half-Life 2's development is an interesting topic. Because of the leaked files, everybody got to see how the game progressed throughout its 5 years of development, from 1999 to 2004. Between 2002 and 2004, the game started to look like what we have today. There are some differences, but they had the overall design finalized. You can see these if you load up the 2002 or 2003 versions of the beta by using the Project Beta's launcher. But the game was very different before 2002. I think it felt a bit too dark and decrepit. In that world, there were elements like the Combine making the air unbreathable on purpose and forced child labor. We won't go in the details for now, but rather focus on just one thing from the beta, and that is City 17. As you can see from the concept art on screen, this version of Half-Life 2 was way bleaker and depressing than the one we got. And the one we got is already filled with the feeling of hopelessness. This beta City 17 is much more gothic or cyberpunk. Rather than explaining what happened between Half-Life 1 and now, the game just drops Gordon in a train headed towards City 17. No explanation is given as to how he got there. It just starts. The moment you get off the train, you realize this is a changed world. Scanners are flying around, Combine monitoring everything, and Gordon's old boss on the screen. You pass by many people and you piece together the story. I won't go into much more because we all know what this city looks like and what the story is. Let's move on to a different City 17. A City 17 that feels like it's from an alternate universe. So this is the 2001 version. You can select New Game to start, but I would suggest you open up the console and type in map, space, followed by the letter C. So it can show you all the maps that were supposed to be the City 17 levels. Most of these start with City 17 underscore and then some numbers. For example, the first map we're going to be looking at is C17 underscore 01 underscore 13. As far as I understand, the 01 is the section of the map and the 13 is the revision number. So this is City 17, or rather, what it would have been if Valve hadn't changed the location to some Eastern European country. Flying cars, gritty textures, and that skybox. I love it, weirdly. But the thing is, the first time I saw this, two things came to mind. Blade Runner, the original one, and 1984. And that's it. That's why this aesthetic wouldn't have worked. Something you'll notice in this map and the rest of these, well, you'll notice that it doesn't shine in this city. I think it may be part of that unbreathable atmosphere plot element. Notice how the citizens will have gas masks on. Something else you'll notice is how different the buildings look. On that point, let me show you something. This image you're seeing is dated 1998. This was the first piece of art Valve came up with when they began developing Half-Life 2. Notice something off? The buildings. They're American in style, in architecture. The original Half-Life 2 would have taken place somewhere in America, probably Washington, D.C., or, well, Vancouver dressed up as New York. This is the same map, but an improved version. The last revision was 13, this is _16. At first it looks like the same, but if you look closely, there are some little details they added in. Plus the area where that Combine guard was standing on the corner is changed. He's now in this small box. It's a small map, doesn't let you proceed any further than here. Map 3, Revision 8. This is a construction site map. Because it's unfinished, I'm not sure where to go to proceed further. I did try finding a way, but I couldn't. It was blocked off. One thing that I really admire about these maps are the dingy textures on the buildings. Notice those crumbling building texture in the background. Map 4, Revision 13. The player probably comes down this chute pipe, or maybe it was something else. This feels like a central part of the city because of the high-rise buildings and the layout. That's the console on the screen. This character later came to be known as Dr. Wallace Breen, the administrator. So far, they really kept a consistent feel throughout the maps. Dark, depressing, and desolate. This map, Map 4, gets revised a bunch of times. Revision 23. You might have noticed that there is an element of City 17 that we haven't seen yet. An iconic one. One that is visible from every corner of the city. We'll see it in this revision. It's the same map pretty much, but with some additional changes. I feel this style, this aesthetic, or whatever you want to call it, whatever they were thinking of, would have never worked for a Half-Life game. I would have loved to see this aesthetic in some other game made by Valve, but not in Half-Life 2. This beta City 17 is just Orwellian. A bit too much Orwellian, I guess. This does not follow the Half-Life 1 mood. Sure, Earth is supposed to be under siege by the Combine, but it shouldn't be this bad. This is a pure dystopia through and through. These maps give off a edgy feeling that I can't really explain. It's that element of being overtly dark just for the sake of it. Something that was prevalent in entertainment media in the late 90s and early 2000s. I get what they were trying to do, but Half-Life isn't known for grime and grittiness. Maybe Max Payne or Batman, but not Half-Life. Half-Life 1 for me is a story of a scientist being the right man in the wrong place, going against all odds and coming out on top. And that's what they continued in the retail version, the sequel, and they chose the right direction. I played these maps multiple times for this video, and I'll be honest, even while they are unfinished, they are depressing. In a previous video, I said Half-Life 2's world has stark contrast between opposite frames of mind. In Half-Life 2, you can see the contrast of defeat and hope through the shadows and light in the world design. Here, it's just all depression. Referring to what I said earlier, this is too much Blade Runner. It's your average fictional dystopia that films in the 80s and 90s depicted. The retail version of City 17 is unique. There may be games in the future that copy Half-Life 2's style, but no one can say Half-Life 2 copied someone else's. In summary, I would have loved to see this style in some other Valve game or any other game in general from that time. I am fascinated that they were able to achieve this aesthetic with these maps. Even if I got to see an unfinished product, I can only imagine that had they continued with this style, how amazing the end product would have been. But on the other hand, I would never replace the retail version of Half-Life 2 with anything else. That game is a masterpiece like its predecessor. So thank goodness they did what they did. That's about it. I didn't go much into the rest of the beta content because it is honestly a rabbit hole. There are not dozens but hundreds more maps that I can show you, but I chose to show you some of the City 17 ones. If you would like to see me cover more beta related stuff, comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more videos like these, please subscribe to the channel, and I would really appreciate it.